Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our program evaluation series. This specific topic is parent and family engagement, policy, and programs. If you have not had the opportunity to view the general tips and topics program evaluation series webinar, we do advise that you do so. This particular session dives a little bit more into the policy program requirements per statute, and then also sample what's reasonable, necessary kind of things, and then examples, as well as a quick walkthrough of an evaluation of the program. But it does not go into general tips as far as this is how I would evaluate a program at large. We do suggest you go ahead and have a look at the general program evaluation series webinar if you are wanting some more assistance in that area. So here's our agenda. We're going to have a brief program evaluation series overview, followed by statutory requirements. Then we'll have a look at expenditures, the program evaluation process, our RNAA, examples, and then close out with a upcoming preview of other sessions that will be happening in the next month. So the program evaluation series, brief overview. What is it? How many are there? And why are we actually offering this? This is the series description that was on the flyer that went out across our listserv. So I'm not going to read all of this to you. In short, it says you have to evaluate your programs if you are receiving federal funding. Side note, you also have to evaluate your programs if you're not receiving federal funding because it is in Texas Education Code. But for the sake of this program evaluation series, we are focusing on the federal programs and the grant funding that comes with it. There are a total of 9 in this series. We've already had the first, which was Title I Part A, Improving Basic Programs. Today, we're covering Parent and Family Engagement Policy and Programs. We're offering this because we want to make sure that if at any time anyone has questions, wants to delve a little bit deeper into the program evaluation series itself, and wants to look at maybe individual pieces, you have the freedom and the autonomy to do so because we have these posted and available in our online learning center and also on our website for you to be able to view. So as you see here, we will be going through June 4th with these program evaluation series webinars. And if you have any further questions outside of what we cover in our time today, please feel free to reach out to us. So let's get into the statutory requirements. First, we're going to look at the general Title I statutory requirements and then dig deeper with parent and family engagement, and then parent compact, etc. I'm sorry, the parent policy compact, etc. So Title I, the general Improving Basic Programs Statement of Purpose. The purpose of this title is to provide all children significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education and to close educational achievement gaps. When we're looking at the program evaluation requirements within Title I itself, and bear in mind that Title I has several pieces, as we saw on that initial title slide about 2 slides back. It has your Part A, your Part C, and your Part D, and parent and family engagement is included under Part A. So Section 1431, it does require that you have your program evaluation itself in order to maintain and improve educational achievement and to focus on graduating from high school, to accrue school credits, transitioning if you do have an LEA or school operated by the Bureau of Indian Education, which obviously does not apply to us here in the state of Texas. Number 4, to complete high school and obtain employment thereafter. And then as appropriate, participate in post-secondary ed and job training programs. Another section of the Title I program evaluation does say that we are conducting an annual or conducting each evaluation, the state or the LEA, using multiple and appropriate measures of student progress. One of the reasons why I kind of harp on that portion is to remind us that this is not a one-time, one-stop shop kind of thing. When you're looking at your evaluation of your program, it's what we have done all year long to meet the needs, in this case, of our parent and family engagement stakeholders. It's not just at this time when we had the back to school night in, say August, beginning of September, nor is it, oh, it's May and school is going to be out in a couple of weeks, so let's go ahead and do an evaluation. You are using multiple and appropriate measures of student progress in order to be able to engage and also be able to kind of ascertain, did we actually do what we set out to do? With your evaluation results, each state and LEA has to submit evaluation results to the state education agency and the secretary, in this case meaning our U.S. Department of Education secretary, and use the results of evaluations under the section to plan and improve subsequent programs for participating children and youth. And the last section here, we're also supposed to be, with parent and family engagement, specifically that subsection of Title I, Part A, conducting with the meaningful involvement of parents and family members an annual evaluation of the content and effectiveness of the parent and family engagement policy in improving the academic quality of all schools served under this part. It also states that you're going to use the findings of such evaluation in subparagraph D to design evidence-based strategies for more effective parental involvement and to revise, if necessary, the parent and family engagement policies described in this section. One of the things I like about this is that, as you noted here in subpart E, it says revise if necessary. So also your parent and family engagement policies. So this is not, I've written a policy, parents have signed off on it, it's laminated, it's on the wall, we're done with it, this is what we are sticking to for the rest of the year. If it's required, you do edit your policy as well as your compact. These are living, breathing documents. As with virtually everything in Title I, it should change and adjust based on the needs of the students and of the stakeholders, your families, community members that you are serving. So with this parent and family engagement policy, as well as that compact and your strategies and practices to meet their needs, it may change throughout the year, and that's fine. Just make sure you're updating your paperwork and make sure that you are holding true to the intent of the grant and that you are providing strategies and opportunities to meet those new needs. So looking at policy, compact, etc., because I wanted to show you what you must do if you're receiving this funding. Now, if you want a more detailed look into specifically parent and family engagement policy, the compacts, the requirements, letter to the law, this webinar that we're doing together focuses on the evaluation. So I'm going to cover it really briefly with you because of the time that we have allocated for this particular session today. Be aware, if you want a more detailed, slower, we're going through everything piece by piece look at parent and family engagement, I would advise you have a look at the webinar that we have in our online learning center that does do that. At the beginning of each year, I'm going to say that I held this one first week of September. We usually do one around the first week of September to help you all prepare for that upcoming school year. So briefly, policy and compact. It is required that you distribute and review the parent involvement policy and school parent compact. That is a requirement under ESSA. It is also required that you describe the role of parents to help develop, review, and update your documents, the policy and compact, as well as your plan as needed. Now, I want to show or point out the reason why we have this little pictorial here in the corner of the icon is because the slides that have that picture come from our statewide initiative, our Title I statewide parent and family engagement initiative, and that's run out of Region 16. So the slides that have that little icon come directly from them, but also be aware that this is in statute. I cross-reference with ESSA. At the elementary level, it is required that you have a parent-teacher conference to actually present and discuss the compact. If you have not done that, please do so. It does not say in statute when you have to have that face-to-face parent-teacher conference where you review and discuss the compact, but it is required that you do so. So if you haven't had it yet, I'm kind of late, it's April to do it now, but it doesn't mean that it cannot be done. The policy, just as an FYI, addresses how the school will implement the parent and family engagement program. Your policy does include, so your policy highlights and should have the following pieces in it. The fact that you're having an annual meeting, you're providing a flexible number of meetings, you're involving parents in an organized, ongoing, and timely way, and the planning, review, evaluation, and improvement of the parent and family engagement policy and program. You're also providing timely information about parent and family engagement activities, information to parents about the curriculum and assessment, and if requested, you're providing additional meetings with parents to discuss decisions for the education of their child. And this is independent of say if the child has additional services through special education or 504 or Title I Part C, what you see here is a requirement for Title I Part A. So if you're receiving any kind of federal funding for Title I Part A, these are things you are required to do. The School Parent Compact is a written agreement, and it describes how parents and families, the school staff, and students share responsibility for improving the student academic achievement. It also addresses high-quality curriculum and instruction, ways in which parents can help support the learning. It stresses the importance of frequent communication between school and home, and then the value of parent-teacher conferences. And it also affirms the importance of parents and families in decision-making. And Title I Part A also notes that parents have the right to be involved in the development of the School Parent Compact. As a side note, there are a lot of campuses in LEAs that decide to have separate compacts kind of based on the grade level. So you'll see you can have, the statute just requires that you have a School Parent Compact. So if you have one for the entire campus, that's fine. We do also see that there has been a growth and a trend within the last, I don't know, I'd say maybe 5-7 years to have a grade level compact. So you can see at some campuses, there's a kinder compact, there's a first grade school parent compact, there's a 9th grade school parent compact. That's totally at your discretion. The law just states, ESSA states that you have a school parent compact. Now, I just read this to you, but the curriculum, you are required to explain the school's curriculum, describe the form of academic assessment that you are using to measure student progress, and to provide information about the achievement levels of the state academic standards. Now, the STAR testing calendar, it's not required that you disseminate it, but it does help when you're looking at just discussions that you have in general with your parents and other stakeholders, when you're providing opportunities for them to be more engaged with and involved with preparing their child for testing that day. But STAR, the testing calendar, it's not required, but it definitely helps to have that, disseminated so they can put it on their fridge and actually use it as a talking piece. And are we ready and are we prepared? In regards to additional meetings, we are required to inform parents about the additional opportunity for additional meetings and flexible meeting times. So the flexible meeting times can include the time of day. So are we meeting in the morning or the evening? You can also make sure that you're referencing funds that may be available to assist with transportation or childcare. Now, the may piece in here is an option. That's not the requirement. You do not have to provide transportation or childcare, but it is something that you may do if you would like to. Now, the additional parent meeting in flexible times, that's not an option. That's a shall, which means in the law you will be doing it. It says, if requested by parents, meet in reference to decisions relating to the education of their child. At any time a parent requests, we will do. Provide parents and families with parent and family engagement training session dates and times if they're scheduled. So those are your building capacity type of sessions, workshops, trainings, things like that you're having with your families. And then distribute materials for home learning activities if applicable. Teacher qualifications. This comes direct from statute. Schools are required to notify parents that they have the right to request information regarding the qualifications of their child's teacher. Now, parents must follow the school procedure to request this information. This doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all and I can come down to the school and maybe not be as kind when requesting the actual information in regards to my child's qualifications. I still have to follow procedures that the school has in place and policies, but I do have the right to come down and request that information, and schools are required to notify me as a parent of that right. We also want to remind them that they should check with their school office or district office to make the request. Parents' right to know, which kind of piggybacks on what we just looked at, but schools are required to notify parents that the student has been assigned or has been taught for 4 or more consecutive weeks by a teacher who does not meet applicable state certification requirements at the grade level and subject area in which the teacher has been assigned. That part is not an option. That's not a if they request it or if they ask. We are required as LEAs to notify parents if this were to happen. There are generic forms for this. If you don't already have one as an LEA, visit our region10.org/Title I site. We can provide additional assistance with that, but this is a requirement. Evaluation is typically done in the spring of the parent and family engagement program, but you can evaluate at any time. You can evaluate every quarter. You can evaluate halfway through, and then at the very end, if you like, to judge and find out whether or not we're on track with meeting the goals that we set for ourselves for parent and family engagement. Now, an annual evaluation does have to occur, and it's going to evaluate the content and effectiveness of that parent and family engagement policy and program. In it, we are required to identify barriers to participation in parent involvement. And some data that you may want to consider could include parent questionnaires and surveys, focus groups. I love focus groups. Just be careful with them. You want to make sure that you do not have anyone that is within that group that could be perceived by parents to have additional power, which may negatively impact their kiddo. So, for example, if Amber and I are in the meeting, and let's say Amber is a principal, and someone asks, "Hey, does Amber respond to your request in a timely manner?" If I'm the parent in the room, of course, oh yeah, she's great. Amber's fantastic. Within seconds, she follows up with me before I even finish typing up my email. She's already giving me feedback. You want to make sure, if you're doing a focus group, that you do not have anyone in there that could sway feedback either way. Parent advisory committee is also data that you may want to include, and then providing electronic evaluation tools if available. You also want to report findings to parents and families of those results, and revise your parent involvement policy and school parent compact as needed. Last thing with this, you want to document everything. Maintain records of how your meeting was publicized, how parents were notified. Make sure you're documenting your agendas. Make sure you're providing and holding on to sign-in sheets when you have a parent and family engagement event, including the date, the time, person's name, and that person's title. Now, that title, what they're referencing there, that's typically also seen as like your role. So am I a parent? Am I a teacher? Am I a business and or industry representative, maybe from the community? That's what they mean by title. And you also want to maintain an accurate record of your minutes. It is important to remember that in the minutes of meetings, document any suggestions and responses from the parents, because according to ESSA, we are supposed to be allowing opportunities for parents to provide responses in regards to our programs. So in those meeting minutes, if a parent raises their hand and says, "Hey, this is my feedback on this," or "What about this? Can we consider that?" Make sure you document it, because that just goes to help as well to show that you are following what the statute says. Okay, so let's look at expenditures or your required set-asides. Fiscally, any LEA with a Title I Part A allocation that exceeds $500,000 is required to set aside 1% of your Title I Part A allocation for parent and family engagement. Now, that has kind of been around for a long time. This is the portion that started to change slightly under ESSA. Of that 1%, 10% may be reserved. It wasn't 10% before. 10% may be reserved at the LEA for system-wide initiatives and administrative expenses related to parent and family engagement. Of the 1%, 90% must be allocated to the Title I schools in the LEA to implement school-level parent and family engagement. Now, this should not be new to us, because this was a change with ESSA, which means these are things that went into effect at the onset of this year. So that was a slight change from before when we were under Nickelby as far as the percentages of your set aside. But this should not be new to us at this juncture, because this has been in place this school year. If you're receiving less than $500,000 in Title I Part A funding, then you are not required to set aside 1%. You are required to have some parent and family engagement activities, because that's just part of Title I. But the actual dollar amount, that fiscal responsibility, if you're not receiving $500,000 or more, you are not required by statute that 1% set aside. It's good practice to do, even if I'm, receiving $4,000. It's a good practice, but just know you're only required if you have that much in your allocation. of the Title I Part A, parents have the right to be involved in the decisions regarding how these funds will be used for parent and family engagement activities. Now, the reason why they took the time, and they meaning, again, we see the little icon in the corner. So this was slide was taken directly from the statewide Parent and Family Engagement Initiative. The reason why they have specified Title I Part A parents have the right is because not only does it come in statute, but if you're operating a Title I program on a campus and let's say it's targeted assistance, then those specific parents have the right to be involved in the decisions regarding how you're utilizing the funding. Now, if it's a school-wide campus, well, then that's all of the parents because we're a school-wide campus. But if it's a targeted assistance campus, what that piece references, which comes directly from statute, is saying that those specific parents have the right to have a voice as to how we're spending your funding. Going into it a little bit more, and this is going to be the last of the expenditure slides, the LEA Title I plan addresses how you will use your Title I Part A funds within the school district. Typically in Texas, the elements of your Title I plan are incorporated in your district improvement plan and your campus improvement plan. So some topics that may be included within those improvement plans are high quality student academic assessments, supplemental services to assist struggling students, coordination and integration of federal funds and programs, strategies to implement effective parent and family engagement, and then also be aware that your Title I Part A parents have the right to be involved in the development of that plan, district as well as campus, if you're receiving that Title I funding. And again, when they're saying Title I Part A parents, if it's a school-wide campus, that is everybody. If it is a targeted assistance campus, those are those parents who are part of that program, whose students are participating in the Title I program. Okay. So let's have a look at briefly at a program evaluation process. The evaluation process, in short, it looks at what you set out to do. So at the onset of the year, what did I say I wanted to do, what we actually accomplished, and to what degree it was accomplished. So we will look briefly at the process. We'll look briefly at a suggested tool, some examples, and we'll do a sample evaluation. Now, also keep in mind that evaluation must be planned from the start. So this includes collecting baseline data. So what were we doing with our parent and family engagement initiative previously? This is the beginning of the school year. What have we already done? What are we planning to do? You want to collect baseline data because it's just another way of being able to prove that you have been using that grant funding in the intent that it was provided and that it is positively impacting your parent and family engagement activities, their engagement with the campus, and then ultimately student academic achievement. Data can be collected from a variety of sources. You can include your fund sources. So looking at your budgets, how much did you have allocated, even if I'm not required to set aside that 1% because we have in excess of $500,000, but you can use your budget summary with that. Also look at your CNA, your comprehensive needs assessment. There is a section that specifically focuses on parent and family engagement. So based on our needs assessment, what did we see is a need for the parents and families on our specific campus or within our LEA. If you don't have as much data as you would like, if you're looking at this now and it's April 16th and you would like more data, like, man, I know this program was very effective, but I just don't have any data to kind of back it up. It looks subjective. Start planning for that for next year. As you go forward into the 18-19 school year, go ahead and earmark or designate specific data pieces you want to pull so that when you're at this stage of the year next year, you're able to have a more comprehensive set of data for you to review for your evaluation. Now, before I flip the slide and go into a 5-step possibility for program evaluation, I do want to let you know that the state of Texas does not say how you evaluate your program. Actually, neither does ESSA. There is not a prescribed way of actually evaluating your program. Statute and the state of Texas just cares that you evaluate the program. They don't tell you how to do it. So what I'm getting ready to show you is a possible program evaluation process. It is not the ultimate end all be all. It's just a possibility. So the 5 steps that we have here, the first of which would be to list your needs, followed by identifying your strategies, identifying your funds, reviewing the data, and evaluating your impact. Now, listing your needs, that comes directly from your CNA, which is why I said at that last slide, you want to pull your CNA. This is all possible pieces of data that can help you evaluate your parent involvement program. So when you did your needs assessment for the 17-18 school year, and you did that comprehensive needs assessment utilizing data from your families and input from your stakeholders in the community, what did they identify as needs? That's your step one. You're pulling from your CNA. What you see here is a screenshot of your family and community involvement CNA toolkit that was from Nickleby. Now, I do want to say that, yes, it has Nickleby down there in that right left-hand corner. No, we do not have a new one for ESSA, but be aware, it does not change. The CNA is the CNA. The process is the process. Because it's just a general, this is what you do. If you want to use that same tool sheet from the Nickleby program guidance booklet until we receive something from the agency, feel free. Because again, as you see here, one side has possible data sources. It asks you what data sources you reviewed. On the back side of that toolkit, you see strengths. What are we doing really well? Needs. This where you should be pulling this from when we're looking at the program evaluation process for your parent and family engagement program. And then you have the summary of the needs. This toolkit does not show anything that is so specific to Nickleby that you cannot use it as a reference point during this year as well, while we're waiting to get a revamped guidance from the TEA. You're totally fine with using this. So those needs came from your CNA. Now that we know the needs, we're looking at our plan, because now step two is identifying the strategies. Now you're using your district and or campus improvement plan. You're identifying your strategies or initiatives that address the program needs and were connected to the federal program. So if during our CNA, we discovered things within our parent and family engagement program that we need to tighten up to make better based on feedback, in my plan, because it's all one continuum, I'm addressing the actual needs here through strategies. So now I'm pulling those strategies from my improvement plan, be it district or campus, that says here, this is what we did to address the needs. Those needs, as we said before, that come from the plan will show themselves the steps that we're doing, the things that we are doing to target those needs to address them. And that here's a sample campus improvement plan template. If you are utilizing 806 Technologies, which is one of our partners here at the Region 10 ESC, they have the Plan for Learning and Title I Crate software, among other things. When you go into your online database, that software there, it'll show this a little differently, but it all is still there. You can pull your strategies online through your Plan for Learning as well. So step three is identifying your funding. So I addressed my needs, or I found out what my needs were, just to kind of refresh our memories as you're doing the evaluation process at the end of the year. Then we went ahead and looked at our strategies to see what strategies did we at the beginning of the year put into place, and also throughout the year have been putting into place and maintaining. Now I want to see, how much did I actually spend? Where did the funds come from? Now, I also want to remind you that if you are having an improvement plan of any kind, and every campus should, according to Texas Education Code, which is totally separate from a federal requirement, you should have in there, next to each strategy, this is how much I tentatively believe this strategy or implementation of the strategy should cost. That usually falls under your resource column. So how much do we think this is going to be? So when we're looking at identifying our funds, in addition to your budget summary reports that you're pulling, in addition to that, you can also pull your improvement plan, because it should indicate around how much funding we thought was going to be necessary. Step four is evaluating the data, or reviewing the data itself. So I am reviewing the data to identify and to measure the fidelity of implementation and the impact of the strategy or initiative on student outcomes. Even with parent and family engagement, sometimes I think that because it is titled parent and family engagement, that we forget that at the end of the day, it all comes back to improving student outcomes, student academic achievement. So with what I'm doing with my parents and families, building their capacity, when it all comes down to it, our student academic achievement should increase as well. So what I did here when we're talking about reviewing data, I just snapshot again your CNA, the data sources reviewed. Also keep in mind, again, your improvement plan, be it local, so the campus or your LEA, student achievement, your budget reports. Data comes from a variety of things. Look at your sign-in sheets when you're thinking about your annual Title I meeting, where you're thinking about any parent training or opportunity for growth to build capacity that you offer. You can also look at survey results, meeting minutes, trend data. We think about qualitative data more with parent and family engagement than we do sometimes the other areas, but your data should be both quantitative and qualitative. It's not just STAR, it's data throughout that we're continuing, because there are multiple measures of data according to the statute that we should be pulling. What you see here is just a screenshot of a curriculum assessment. So just being aware that data should come from a variety of places, look a variety of ways. And then the very last thing you want to do, if you choose this 5-step process, is to evaluate your impact. So when you're evaluating the impact, which is really kind of the meat, I guess I would say, of the program evaluation process, end of the day, kind of grand scheme of things, I looked at my needs, I pulled data, I pulled funding. I had a look to see whether or not academic achievement was impacted at all. So now I'm evaluating the overall impact of the program. This helps me now know, or to help to decide as a committee, if we're going to recommend to continue the program, or if we decide we want to continue it with some modifications, or we want to stop it altogether. Now, when I say implement the program, if you're taking Title I Part A funding, you are implementing parent and family engagement policies, compacts, and activities to build capacity. What I mean by implement the program here is maybe that particular strategy was that particular tutorial sessions which help build parent capacity and showing them how to implement dibbles at home, you know, the reading fluency kind of things, or was that particular software that we purchased for parents to be able to be more fluent reader themselves, did it positively impact overall student academic achievement? That's what I mean when I'm saying you're evaluating the impact of the program. I don't mean that's little p. I don't mean big P as in Title I Part A parent family engagement, okay? What you see here is just a heat map, just another example of when you're looking at your data and you're evaluating the impact, you want to look at all of it together. Here are a couple of things you may want to consider. These are just survey examples when we're referencing parent and family engagement, the evaluation of the policy compact, the program at large, big P program at large. You have your Title I parent involvement. There's a survey. Here's the backside of a sample survey as well. Over there on the right-hand side, you see a questionnaire. So just another way for you to be able to pull data. Now I want to get into what's considered reasonable, necessary, allowable, and allocable. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we are talking about Title I Part A funding. Now, specifically, we're referencing parent and family engagement, but these rules still apply. You still have to make sure that you are following the rules as pertains to how you're spending funding. You want to make sure also that when you are talking about what's reasonable, necessary, allowable, and allocable, that you are looking at the actual application that you submitted for your Title I Part A, because it does say in there, and funds requested when you're referencing your money must be only for those items that are considered reasonable and necessary for accomplishing the objectives of the program. So this is, you know, you want to make sure that all costs that you incur, if you're trying to charge them back to Title I Part A, they have to be budgeted actually in your application itself, and which was different with ESSA as opposed to Nickleby. In ESSA, you did highlight and put in there explicitly in that application itself what costs you think you were going to incur so that you could actually turn around and charge it to the grant itself. That prior approval that used to be required before under Nickleby, there's like a separate form and a process to go through TEA. That's slightly different now because within the ESSA Consolidated Federal App, you had to put in there, these are the expenditures I believe or I think we're going to have. So looking at what's considered reasonable. To determine the reasonableness of a cost, you want to make sure it meets that the cost is a type generally recognized as ordinary and necessary for the operation of the grant, that restrictions or requirements are imposed that are generally accepted, so they're sound business practices, the individuals that are acting with prudence in the circumstances of responsibility to the organization, and that there are no significant deviations from established practices of the organization. So that's basically sound business practices when you're looking at reasonable. When you're looking at allowable, in order for a charge to be allowable, to be submitted towards the grant, it should be reasonable for the performance of the grant and allocable under the applicable cost principles. It also must conform to limitations or exclusions set forth. It should be consistent with your policies and procedures. Be accorded consistent treatment among all of your grant programs, regardless of the funding source. Be determined to be in accordance with your gap. Not be included as a cost or used to meet cost sharing or matching requirements, and not be used for leases or purchase. Looking at allocability, the following guidelines must apply. A cost is allocable to a particular grant if the relative benefits received is treated consistently with other costs incurred for the same purpose. For example, it is incurred specifically for the grant and benefits both the grant and the other work and can be distributed reasonably. Any cost allocable to a particular grant or other cost objective may not be shifted to other federal awards. So this piece here, your RNAA kind of gets a little bit into the weeds. If you're not part of, let's say, those in the business office who really kind of comb through this, or some of our federal programs folks who comb through this to make sure that all of these costs fall under this. But I wanted to make sure when you're talking program evaluation that you are very much aware and making sure that you are holding those within your LEA to these standards, because when you're evaluating your program, you don't want to be charging something to the grant that should not be charged to the grant, and evaluating a program that you pay for with the grant funding that should not be a part of that evaluation. Here are a couple of questions you may want to consider when you're talking about is something allowable or not allowable. So you do, of course, want to make sure and be able to tie back how the expenditure is reasonable and necessary to carry out the intent and purpose of the program. That is a major one. Why is this necessary? Why isn't it reasonable? Do I have to have this in order to be able to fulfill the intent and purpose of the grant itself? I'm not going to read all this to you. The only other one I want to point out is number 4. How will the expenditure be evaluated to measure a positive impact on student achievement? Because again, it all comes back to academic achievement of our kiddos. And when you're looking at supplemental things, as number 6, that question that was there, that's a prompt from the agency. Just make sure that you're keeping in mind that this is in reference to district level and targeted assistance campuses. If it is a school-wide campus, then it's not supplemental, because we are all a part of this Title I Part A school-wide initiative. If it's targeted assistance campus or at the district level, that's when you're focusing more on the supplemental portion of that question, when you're saying, how is it supplemental to other non-federal programs? Okay. Now I want to go through a couple of examples, and these are common program expenditure kind of questions that we get used, or that we get asked regularly. Can we use our funding this way? So just as a reminder, one more time, I know I just said this, but with your Title I Part A funds, if you're on a targeted assistance campus, that means that I can only use those funds to serve Title I served children. So if I'm looking at my campuses and all of my, let's say 9 of my 10 campuses are school-wide, well, then that's different rules, because everyone is treated the same when it comes to that spending allowability, because that's a full Title I campus. If my 10th campus is targeted assistance, it is different. I can only use those Title I Part A funds to meet the needs of the served Title I students, not eligible, but actual served Title I students on that campus. Let's look at a couple of examples. Here's the first. Can I use my Title I Part A funding to purchase refreshments for parent night? So in essence, is food allowable? Yes, it is. Full meals are not allowable, but you are allowed to have nutritional snacks for students in extended day or after school programs, nutritional snacks for children in childcare while parents are participating in grant activities. So that's your parent and family engagement opportunities. Food necessary to conduct nutrition education programs for parents. If you're doing a training and you're talking about the importance of nutrition and you're providing samples of those and how this impacts student academic achievement, you can do that. Parent involvement activities in which refreshments are necessary to encourage participation or attendance by parents, such as in low-income areas, and which will in turn help to meet your program objectives. But again, full meals for parents and students are not allowed under any circumstances. It does always, of course, have to go back to the RNAA. So how is it reasonable, necessary, allocable, and allowable in order to accomplish your program objectives? Just as a reminder as well, refreshments of any kind, when we're talking beverages, breakfast, breaks, you want to make sure that it falls under the very specific circumstances that you see there. If it's a food cost that's not necessary to accomplish the objectives of the grant, you're not allowed to do it. Now, you can do it, but you can pay for it out of local funding. You're not allowed to utilize your Title I Part A funding to do so. I'll say it like that. I serve on a Title I school-wide campus. Can I use my Title I Part A funding to pay for parent registration to the statewide Parent Involvement Conference? Funny you should ask. This is my opportunity to plug the 2018 Statewide Parental Involvement Conference. It is being held December 6th through 8th, 2018, and we as a region are holding it. It will be out of our Frisco Embassy Suites and Convention Center. If you want more information about the Statewide Parent Involvement Conference that is being held in our region, here in Region 10 in December, the website is there on the screen, www.inplanners.com/parents. And my last kind of PSA for that, we are accepting proposals. So if you are doing awesome things within your LEA and you think that a particular campus is doing something that's really cool and you want to be able to share that and think that others would they benefit from hearing about that, feel free to submit a proposal. All proposals upcoming, you want to make sure that it is submitted and selections will be made no later than September 14th. You will be notified in September 18th whether or not your proposal has been accepted. And by the 19th, lead proposers will find out, 19th of October, their room capacity, kind of as you plan, how many materials or I think I should have available electronically, things of that nature. Okay, that is the last of my PSA for the Statewide Parent Involvement Conference. So back to the actual question in regards to registration fees. Registration fees to attend workshops or conferences are allowable. Social events or recreational events available at a cost above the basic registration fee may not be paid from grant funds. So know that. You can pay for the conference and workshops. This particular question was the State Involvement Conference. You can pay for the registration, but additional, events after, we're going to dinner, we're doing, that is not allowable to be charged to the grant program itself. I serve on the Title I Targeted Assistance Campus. Can I use my Title I Part A funding to pay for parent travel and conference costs to, you guessed it, the Statewide Parent Involvement Conference? Travel and conference costs are allowable is specifically related to the Title I Part A program and not to general needs of the LEA or campus, and they're reasonable and necessary. The Site-Based Decision-Making Committee wants to pass out pamphlets highlighting practical ways that parents and families can be more involved at home and at school. Can we do this and pay for it using my Title I Part A parent allocation? Why, yes, you can. Straight from ESSA, there is a section, section 1116, subpart D, that references the use of funds. Now, I'm not going to read all of this to you. Well, I take that back. I'm going to skim some of it to you because this is a portion of ESSA that I think sometimes gets overlooked because this was kind of new to this year. So with your use of funds, you can use the funding that you have set aside. So if you're, as an LEA, have an excess of $500,000, you could use that 1% set aside. Or if you don't have that excess but still want to use parent funding to do this, you can. Make sure, and you are required, that you are carrying out activities and strategies consistent with your LEA's parent and family engagement policy that should include not less than one of the following. So of the 5 I'm getting ready to read to you, we are required, and this should not be a surprise, to implement at least one of these. Support schools and nonprofit organizations in providing PD. Support programs that reach parents and family members at home. Number 3, subpart 3 here, I haven't read because that goes back to the question that we had. Disseminating information on best practices focused on parent and family engagement, especially best practices for increasing the engagement of economically disadvantaged parents and family members. So based on that question that was posed to us, yes, you can use your funds in that way. And according to statute, you have to use funding to cover one of 5 things. There's one of 5 that you should at least be doing. Here's 4 and 5. Collaborate or provide subgrants to schools to enable such schools to collaborate with community-based or other organizations to record the success of improving and increasing parent and family engagement. And then number 5, engaging in any other activities and strategies that the LEA determines are appropriate and consistent with such agency's parent and family engagement policy. So number 5 is kind of your catch-all, but you are allowed to disseminate information using that Title I Part A program funding if it is going back to overall providing and informing on best practices for parent and family engagement. Got a couple more questions for you. Allowable or unallowable? Here's a common program expenditure question. The 3rd grade mathematics team wants to offer a mathematics exploration night for parents and families. It would involve a half day of training, and families would leave with flashcards to continue practice with their children at home. Can I purchase supplies for this with my Title I Part A funding? Of course you can. This comes straight from the capacity building portion of the ESSA. Materials and training. You are allowed to purchase using your Title I Part A parent involvement funding. You can provide, and the shall means you will. Remember, anywhere in statute that it says shall is a I must do this. I shall provide materials and training to help parents to work with children to improve their achievement, such as literacy training and using technology as appropriate to foster parent involvement. It also goes on to say that you shall educate teachers. You shall, to the extent feasible, coordinate and integrate parent involvement programs and activities with other federal and state and local programs. Make sure that I am sharing information related to the school and parent programs. So if we were going to do a sample here, how do I evaluate this? The 3rd grade mathematics team wants to offer the math exploration night. This is the example we just looked at. So if I were going to use that 5-step process that we looked at before, which again, recommendation, but not required. It is just required that you evaluate the program. I would say, okay, what are the needs? Well, based on the example here, I went back and looked at my CNA, and the CNA clearly shows that our 3rd grade math is an area of concern. It's a challenge for our campus or a challenge for our LEA at large, and we want to make sure that we address this. So the second piece, identifying the strategies. I went to my campus improvement plan, and we said in there that we were going to host monthly math exploration nights for parents and families. In that training, or in that monthly math exploration nights, we're going to do training with them. We're going to model. This is how we're modeling upcoming TEKS, upcoming sections that we're going to be covering for the next month with our kids. And we're actually going to be modeling for them how I can help continue the learning, the academic achievement at home with the flashcards. Step 3 is identifying the funds. Well, within the improvement plan that I was just looking at to find the strategy, it should say in there, this is around how much we anticipated costing for us to engage in this strategy. I'm also pulling, as a reminder, my budget summary reports. How much have I spent? I'm going to review the data. So data meaning before we started these math nights, or maybe if I did a pre-assessment of the strategy itself, or pre-assessment of single digit, well, no, that's 3rd grade. They should be beyond single digit addition at that point. If I'm doing a pre-assessment of whatever TEKS we're getting ready to cover for that upcoming unit, I should be able to have some data there that shows this is where the kids were performing before we started these math nights. This is where the kids were performing before we I had parents and families come in and reviewed modeling of the lessons, showing parents and families this is how you can continue to learning at home, utilizing the materials that you have that you actually did with them through the training. And then lastly, now that I've looked at all the data from the math nights, from the trainings, from all of this that we've been doing for this particular program Little P, based on the needs that we found in our CNA, is there an impact? Now, I have computer software up here as well, because that is another option for you. A lot of our LEAs do like to use funding towards the computer software. And this is something that we know is allowable under other title funding areas as well, but definitely under Title I Part A. So if you are doing a parent program that will show or help teach parents how to do supplemental math instruction at home, you can also look at it through that lens as well. Whatever you're doing, those 5 steps that we just briefly walked through is how you could evaluate an individual strategy or action that you're doing for your parent and family engagement initiative, and how you can evaluate the program Big P at large using those same 5 steps. So at the end of the year, if I'm conducting this evaluation at the end of the year, it's May, and I want to look at our overall parent and family engagement practices. I'm going to look at overall the impact of the policy and the compact on student academic achievement. I would do the same 5 steps. I would list our needs. I would identify all of the strategies that we used in this program, maybe not just the math night, maybe not just the computer software, everything that I did with parent and families, identifying the funds, reviewing the data, deciding as a committee, is the parent or are the parent and family engagement strategies that we used this year worthy of the investment of the resources? Was it worthy of the investment of our time, of the funding? Do we want to continue it as is next year? Do we want to make alterations to it? Was this particular strategy not beneficial based on data, and therefore maybe we need to stop it? Maybe we don't continue this next year. But that recommendation would be based on that evaluation of your impact at that time. Okay, moving on. Our last section here, as we start to go into closing, is the ESSA reporting. I do just briefly want to show you this, the program schedule and the evaluation reports. Part of the reason why is because as you are asking for data and soliciting data from your campuses within your LEA, just kind of, remind them we are required to actually do this. This is a screenshot from the ESSA Consolidated Federal Grant Application Year 3101. As you see there, the very top here says district-wide parent and family engagement activities. As you can tell, because that box is not checked, that overall LEA did not receive in excess of the $500,000 in order to be able to take that 1% set aside. They were close, but they did not receive it. Here we have the 16-17, you'll notice, screenshot of the Nickel-B Consolidated Compliance Report. The reason why I have the PR 1000 here from 16-17 is because we do not have yet a screenshot or a copy of the finalized compliance report for 17-18. But one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this is because this is probably still going to be here, because as you see here, part 2, since parent and family engagement is a requirement per statute, these questions, the questions may change slightly, but the overall content is probably going to remain the same because it comes straight out of your Title I part of ESSA. Okay, so be aware of that. If they're asking you, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to evaluate the program? Why do you need a copy of me evaluating the program? It is because federally we are required, and according to Texas Education Code, we're required to evaluate the programs as well. And it does go into parent and family engagement in the statewide requirements as well when you're looking at Texas Education Code. But for the sake of doing our actual federal consolidated compliance report, you are going to be asked, of course, in regards to, did I meet the expectations that we said we were going to be meeting at the beginning of the school year for parent and family engagement? You see here a couple of more questions. All of this comes straight from statute, that parent involvement policy. We talked about this, the agendas, meeting notes, sign-in sheets, correspondence, all of this. This all comes directly from statute. What's going to change on the compliance report is the note itself, that Public Law 107-110, Section 1118B well, obviously that's changed. We're no longer 107-110 when we're looking at parent and family engagement under ESSA, nor is the section 11.8. The section's 11.16 now. And then anyway, I can go off into a circle when it comes to numbers, but just be aware that because the statute is very similar, there are some slight changes, but we're still required to actually submit that stuff, and it comes straight from the law. So going into closing, I just wanted to let you know that, as we indicated earlier, we've already had our first program evaluation series webinar. We are coming to the closing of our second program evaluation series session on parent and family engagement policy and programs. Next week, we will cover Title I, Part C, Migrant Ed, and then we will keep going all the way to Title V, Part B, the Rural Ed Initiative, which includes your SRSA as well as your RLIS, and that'll be on June 4th. If you want to know a couple of things in regards to resources, some of the places that I would have a look at, of course, would be your statute. That is going to be your first place you should look. By all means, reach out to us here at the Region 10 ESC. We are here to be of service to you and to better help as you implement the programs that you are with your students, so that we can make sure that all of our stakeholders' needs are being met. But the statute is your friend. It's very specific. It lets you know this is what you will and will not do, or rather this is what you shall and shall not do. The program evaluation booklet was a resource that you can always go back to, as well as the statewide Parent and Family Engagement Initiative, which is housed at the Region 16 ESC. So when you're on the U.S. Department of Ed's website, that ed.gov, you'll see ESSA in the right-hand corner. Click on it. Know it. Print some stuff out if you would like to read it in further detail. If you go to our region10.org/Title I site, you'll see several resources there as well. Under that Title I Part A tab, when you click on it, you'll find a parent involvement section. If you want some more information about the program evaluation piece, you'll see there at the bottom that program evaluation tool and that program evaluation guidance booklet, which is what the arrow is pointing to. As an FYI, I am aware that it does still say Nickleby, because as I mentioned earlier, we are still waiting to get a updated guidance booklet in relation to ESSA as pertains to program evaluation in the program evaluation tool, and actually the CNA, which you'll see there under the CNA tab. But again, because this information does not change on a whole, you evaluate a program the way you evaluate a program, because they do not tell you exactly how to do it. They just care that you do one. You can feel free to kind of use those guidance tool resources as you see fit. This is the program evaluation booklet that we just looked at. The statewide Parent and Family Engagement Initiative is on Region 16's website, and that's esc16.net. What you'll see there when you go to their site is the contact information for Terry Stafford, who is the coordinator over the statewide initiative, and Skip Forsyth, who is the consultant over the initiative as well, and then Patricia Meyer, who's definitely there to also help and provide additional assistance. So if you have any additional questions that we did not cover during our time together, feel free to reach out to us. We are here at the Region 10 Education Service Center to be of service and support and assistance to you. And here's our team. We have Amber Lazane, who is our Assistant Director of Special Revenue Services, Tony Garrett, who is a Program Coordinator over a statewide initiative, which is the Capacity Building Initiative, Laura Griffin, who works exclusively with our private nonprofits, Becky Book, who works with our state allotments as well as ESSA, SSA, myself there in the middle, Lauren McKinney. I'm a consultant here as well for ESSA and SSA, and then Jodelle Bland, who also assists in the area of ESSA and the SSA. That has been our time together for the second program evaluation series, Parent and Family Engagement Policy and Programs. If you have any other questions, if there's anything that we can do to be of further assistance to you, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and allow us the opportunity to do so. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you have a phenomenal rest of your day. Bye-bye.